Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It is time for another news roundup. It's Francis. I'm coming back at you. It is cold, it is wet, it is rainy outside. We're going to get a little bit of snow. I hope everybody else's winter is going well, and you're getting all the disgusting cold weather that you've been hoping for. There are freaks that I work with that live in Michigan that are like, oh, we love it. It's so great. It's great that we're finally getting snow. Didn't think we were going to get snow. I hate it. If I never saw snow, if I never felt below 40 degrees ever again, I would be ecstatic. Like, my dream one day is to move to LA, not because like I want to be an actor or I want to live this California dream or something. I just never really want to be feeling anything under 40 degrees. And if I could live that way, if I could live my entire life in a light jacket like this, I would be so happy. I would be very excited. But unfortunately, the Midwest has taken me, and we must, wear multiple layers of fleece and eat 7-layer salads that have a lot of mayonnaise in them, which we're going to get to a little bit later. So, a couple of things to get out of the way first. Nate should be back. I am recording this the evening before Nate and I record, so I'm not going to 100% say there's an episode coming out with Nate back on it, but we have one planned. He has been he's been doing Lions Led by Donkeys. He's coming back for my show as well, and we're going to be having him back on really our show. He and I have been doing this together for multiple years at this point, so. And, he had a baby and he needed to take some time off, and, it's hard. I know when my kid was born, I got 2 weeks off, but I got all of that, I got 2 weeks off paid. Actually, I got 4 weeks off. We gave Nate 3 months off, which is, he lives in England and that's like standard there. So I didn't want him to feel like, oh, I can't, don't put your American standards on me, where it's just like, look, you didn't have the baby, motherfucker. Your wife did. So get back into the content mines. So anyway, you should be back. We're going to have some great dad content. Very excited to experience somebody going through all of that nonsense from the very beginning, when I have an 8-year-old who's fairly self-sufficient at this point. She can make her own cereal, pour her own milk, and wipe her own butt. So, at this point, it's all gravy. She can read. Like, what do I need to do anymore? She's good. They can send her to go work in the steamtress factories or whatever they had in the 1800s. Anyway, so Nate's going to be back, and that's going to be great. A little bit more bookkeeping. I've updated the Patreon. So these episodes and the episodes I do with Nate are going to go out on a weekly basis. We're always going to have these episodes as free and out there. Interviews that I do, and I have a couple of interviews lined up for this week. Interviews will go onto the Patreon first, and then come out onto the main feed probably a week later. So if you are giving at any level, at any amount of money, you will be getting at least one free episode a month, as well as those episodes that are going to come out early. The $5 and up is going to be where you get more bonus content. You're going to be able to vote on movies that the Zoo Crew watches, myself and Joe and Carrie. I'm going to give like 4 movies in a theme and let everybody vote for it over a week, and then we'll watch that movie and we'll talk about it. So I'm trying to do things that make this a little bit more interactive with you all, with the fans. That's why in the Hey Dad segment, that's going to be a little bit later, I ask people their questions. What do you want to ask? What do you want to ask a dad? I want to get that open dialogue back and forth, because that's, I want people to feel comfortable coming to me. I like to be accessible. I like people to like me. Go figure. So that's all been changed. But like I said, if there's not that big of a change happening, it's just kind of shuffling some things around and making the Patreon a little bit more, a bit more enticing, I'm going to say, to your average person. So, and of course, we still have the Discord with the Lions Led by Donkeys group as well. So, there's a lot of, and I'm always in there, and Joe's in there a lot too. So there's, a lot of us that, there's a lot of ways to interact, but, it's not just, Twitter and YouTube and Patreon, and I'm not really on Facebook or Instagram, but we do have those. I don't really like either of those, so I don't spend a whole lot of time on them. But look, if you ever want to reach out, have questions, comments, or concerns, let me know. I can't guarantee you I'm going to have all the answers, but I don't know. We can help you hash something out, I suppose. So let's go ahead and get into the news. We're going to start with some other personal news. So today is January the 8th, and hold on. All right, so let's do a little personal news first. It's January 8th, 2024. This is the 20-year anniversary of my deployment to Afghanistan. So, and what that meant was my first deployment was not with a Army unit as one would think. So, you probably, if you're not in the Army and you weren't never in the Army, you might not know necessarily how the deployments work. And I'm going to tell you the thing I'm going to describe to you is not how deployments work for the most part. So my first deployment, I had just broken up with my girlfriend at the time. I was working a dead-end job at a Kinko's. I was very depressed and I hated everything. And I thought, you know what would be good for my soul is to go to a fucking war zone, apparently. So I called up my unit and said, hey, find me a war. Find me Afghanistan, Iraq, whatever. I was all hopped up to go to Iraq. So, got orders cut. The orders were to go to Afghanistan. At the time, Afghanistan was kind of like, when I went to Afghanistan, Iraq was popping off. And when I went to Iraq, Afghanistan was popping off, which, in hindsight, good that I did not get shot at on a very regular basis, only on the occasional basis that happened. But when I deployed to Iraq, I was attached to the 367th Mobile Public Affairs Detachment out of Columbus, Ohio. I still talk to a lot of those guys. I actually game with a couple of them, playing a Dungeons and Dragons game with a handful of them. And, I had a lot of camaraderie with them, great group of guys. When I went to Afghanistan, I went as an individual augmentee, which meant I was not attached to a unit. They basically said, here's your orders. I had orders that said 364 days, because if they gave me a full year, they would have to start giving me more privileges and benefits and things like that. The Army's real good at doing that. It's just like, no, we're going to cut orders one day short so that we can fuck you over a little bit. But I got them back because then I went to Iraq for a year and 2 months. I don't know. Maybe that's on me in the end. But I did get I got my time in, I guess. Although they changed everything. Look, administratively, I cannot explain how the Army does anything ever. And I don't think anybody really can, because I don't have an Afghanistan campaign medal because I went to Afghanistan in 2004. The Afghanistan campaign medal wasn't given until 2005. I've got the GWAT-E, I think is what we got, the Global War on Terror Expeditionary, which was just like, you got deployed for the Global War on Terror and you went somewhere that wasn't the United States. At the time, that meant Afghanistan, and then further outlying areas. But they had to get something else, because then there was the GWAT-E for Iraq, and you can't have two wars in two theaters with two different names, OEF and OIF, and not have two different sparkly bits to put on your chest. So they had to, and I was always told, it's like, you can get some paperwork done to get your Afghan campaign medal. I prefer it the way that I have it, just because it's a little different, because I'm old and I like having the old thing that nobody else has. Really, that's what it comes down to. It's 50% laziness, 50% I have something that other people can't get, and that's exciting to me. I like that. So that was a year ago. I deployed. I went to Fort Benning. I was at Fort Benning for 1 week. Before I went to Afghanistan. My training was mostly with some other augmented soldiers, but it was other individual soldiers and civilians. There was a woman there whose last name was Horton, and she was she was a civilian contractor, and she was like, yeah, I have to go through this training to go overseas too. She was great. Loved her to death. We made the joke that I was the milkman's baby because she was a black woman, but she was fantastic. I actually ran into her in Afghanistan about 2 months later at the PX. She was managing the PX on Bagram Airfield, and she really excited. Oh God, it's so great seeing you. And she's like, "Was there anything here in the PX that you would want to get?" So soldiers, especially in 2004, loved to chain smoke cigarettes, and they had a big wall of cigarettes, and it was Marlboros, Marlboro Lights, and Newports, and that was it. And I said, look, I would absolutely love it if you got Camel cigarettes in here. Fucking a month later, Camel cigarettes. So I like to think that I'm the reason why Camel cigarettes were in the Afghan PX. But of course, at any time we could, we bought cigarettes off of the local economy because you could get a pack of Marlboros for $1 because Afghanistan doesn't tax you for your bad habits. They just assume that you have them and you can get cigarettes for super cheap. Even better were the Pine Lights and the 88 Miles. For those of you smokers in the first half of the war on terror, you know what I'm talking about, and your lungs hurt just thinking about the Pine Lights. So that was Afghanistan. Look at this little guy here, 20 years old, so full of hopes and dreams. That was a Marine. He wasn't PAO, but he wasn't infantry. He was civil affairs. I think he was a Marine civil affairs guy. So he was fairly normal and fun to hang out with. But yeah, that was taken after I was in country for about a month and a half or so. So that's me, and that's Afghanistan. It was certainly a time. I have memories of it, but because I deployed by myself, I was alone a lot, which was fine. I didn't mind being alone. I wasn't sad or depressed. I lived with people. I lived in a, I guess we called them bee huts at the time, where it was a big wooden structure. First, it was a wooden frame with a tent. And then we moved out of those and we were in wooden frames with a roof, and some walls knocked in to give you a little bit of privacy. And I lived with some civil affairs guys in there because I worked kind of with civil affairs at the time. Civil affairs, if you don't know, are the guys, the guys and gals who go out and they say, what do you need here? You need a well, you need a school, you need something built. We can help contract that and get that built and get you taken care of. So I did a lot of civil affairs stories when I was there. I worked out of the civil affairs offices. I worked directly in an office with 2 full-bird colonels that both insisted I call them by their first names, which really fucked me up because I was a 20-year-old specialist. And it gave me a very off-kilter relationship with officers after that, because it was Dave and Colonel Morton. Colonel Morton was just like, no, you should still call me Colonel because you should still call me Sir because that's, that I'm a colonel, we're in an area full of other fucking officers. But the other one, Colonel Bennett, I believe, was just like, no, call me Dave. And he was really cool. Loved him to death. Was really sad to see them end up going home. And because I was there when the 10th Mountain was there, and then they rotated home in March, and then I had to stick around for the 25th ID. So 25th was still fine. Good people, but you miss your full birds that you get to hang out with. Yeah, Afghanistan, 20 years ago. Don't recommend it in a wartime setting. Afghanistan by itself, though, pretty nice. It's a very beautiful country. A lot of really great places, a lot of great food, and really great people. Like, the ones that aren't trying to kill you are pretty fantastic and very friendly. There's always tea. There's always something to eat. Like, they're always going to share with you. They're, like, the politest people in the world. So, I have nothing but respect for the Afghan people after living kind of with them for a year and seeing the shit that they've gone through. And then, of course, learning history and all the shit that their predecessors and their ancestors and everybody else went through. And, I'm not going to, the Taliban, they're assholes for sure. I mean, have you met the Republican Party? They're assholes too. I'm not going to say every American's a shithead, but comparatively to Afghans, we could stand to be a little bit more polite, I think. Not Midwesterners. We're golden. We got it. But you like coastal people, pull the stick out of your ass. Anyway, some other personal news. So I recently went to Costco Business Center. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with what Costco is. It is the place where an American can truly be an American, right? Like, you can buy large quantities of things. You have to buy a membership, and it's like at the most like $60 a year, and that $60 gets you in to buy all kinds of like, I mean, they've got everything, all kinds of food. They've got furniture. They've got appliances, they've got computers and tablets and laptops, and they sell all manner of things. And usually it's in large quantities. Like, and it's great if you have a freezer at home. Like, if you have a standalone freezer, having a Costco membership is fantastic. So we'd like to go and stock up on stuff. So we recently discovered that there's a place called the Costco Business Center. The Business Center is Costco turned up to about 12. For those of you who do know and love Costco and all the wonderful brands that you see at Costco, what you will not see at your normal Costco is this. This is a 1 gallon tub of mayonnaise that I believe was $12 for mayonnaise. Now, I love mayonnaise. And if you're wondering, who needs to buy that? Yes, I bought it. We bought it. Mayonnaise doesn't go bad. Well, it takes a long time for mayonnaise to go bad. It's oil and egg. It's not that bad for you. And I like to make dips with it. So, again, I'm a Midwesterner, man. Mayonnaise is part of our food group. So we definitely got the mayonnaise. And I got to tell you, if you have a business center near you, go into it, even if you're not really going to buy anything, because it's so radically different than the rest of Costco. Here, if you really want to see, so this is a, I believe, 80 to 90 pound wheel of Parmesan cheese for $840 that you can buy there. Now, it's the business center because this is, a lot of the aisles were dedicated to like restaurant stuff, to-go boxes. There's prep tables that you could buy there. If you don't go to Restaurant Depot, you could always go to the Costco Business Center and get all these things. So it's a really like interesting place to go. They have a lot of the things that a regular Costco does, but they have a lot of, other things too. I went there originally because I needed boxes for shipping stuff. But we ended up just taking the whole thing in. It was like, and it's great too, because it's the one that we have here in St. Louis is so big. It's like an aircraft hangar that they just threw industrial shelves up into. And they're like, fucking come and get it, man. Come get whatever you need. Do you need a gallon of mayonnaise? Sure. Do you need a wheel of Parmesan that you need a fucking brace to a weightlifting belt to pick up? Yeah. We got that here at the Business Center. What they don't have though is the hot dogs. So Costco has $1.50 for $1.50. You get a foot-long hot dog and a fountain drink, and for like $4, $3 or $4, you can get a slice of pizza that is, gigantic. It's like they have these big pizzas, and then it's like it's a huge piece of pizza. It's as big as your head, at least. Costco is great to go to. They also have like $5 rotisserie chickens, and they're massive rotisserie chickens. And those things are a loss leader. Like, Costco knows that they lose money on those. So, but they're like, no, people come for the rotisserie chickens. And by God, I go for the rotisserie chickens too. I got half a rotisserie chicken. Last time we got one, stripped it, we ate half, and I froze the other half. So gonna have to defrost that and get to that. But anyway, enough about Costco. Enough about Americana, and all of my gross habits of having a giant thing of mayonnaise. Now, I'm going to see. I cracked it open today. So January 8th, 2024, I will report when we get to the bottom of it. We'll see how far we managed with this one. So our first story here, Iraq's prime minister seeks to end U.S. troop presence following Baghdad strike. This is from friend of the show, Nick Slayton, over on Task and Purpose. Now, some of you might be saying, Francis, I thought the war in Iraq was over. Is the war in Iraq ever over with America? Like, can we ever really quit Iraq? Do you think that there's ever going to be a time that we can go like 4 to 5 years without bombing the shit out of something in Iraq? I don't think we can. I just think it's a compulsion, like the same way that my daughter has difficulty, like, stop chasing the cat around the house, sit down and eat, we have the same thing about bombing Iraqi people. So in this story, we'll kind of go through it just to kind of give you an idea here of what's going on. But like, we once again just schwacked somebody in Iraq. Now, I'm not going to go into the should we have done it or should we not have. There's been a lot of shots that have been fired at Americans in American bases overseas, and America has been very prudent about its response. You know, like, America usually has this knee jerk, like, oh, somebody shot at us, we need to fucking carpet bomb your shit. But America has been kind of like, all right, well, you shot at us, but we shot it down before it got to us. But people have been getting hurt. Like, there have been traumatic brain injuries due to pressure, over pressurization during explosions and things. So wounds have happened. And I don't want to get into, like I said, there's going to be a lot of back and forth on whether we should be there or not. I have always found the best way to not get shot at by Iraqis is to not be in Iraq. So perhaps the Pentagon can consider that to be not in Iraq, and then U.S. troops will not get shot at. But of course, now with Israel and Gaza and Lebanon and Iran and all the other shit that is kind of tumbling down right now, we're not exactly about to give up some spots in Iraq. But so here's what happened. Iraq's prime minister is calling it the end of the American military presence in his country following an airstrike in Baghdad that killed the leader of the Harakat al-Nujaba militia, one of the militias that makes up the popular military forces. The announcement by al-Sudani could impact more than 2,000 American service members in Iraq, as well as allied coalition troops. So most of our troops in Iraq are still kind of centered around Baghdad and, local, that general area. I don't really think that we're in the far-flung bases like once upon a time. I don't, we gave Basra back down south. We gave Kabadar back. We gave a lot of things like, these are yours, but we still have troops somewhere in the middle. They're inside of Baghdad. So in the release that came from al-Sudani, we are in the process of setting the date for the start of the dialogue through the bilateral committee that was formed to determine the arrangements for the end of this presence. And it is a commitment that the government will not back down from and will not neglect anything that would complete national sovereignty over the land, skies, and waters of Iraq. So basically, he's saying, look, we're in the process of setting the date to start the dialogue. Is, it's like, we're going to start a date to start talking about starting to leave. So it's still a very early kind of thing, but it does feel like at a certain point, Iraq is tired of our shit and would really like us to go the fuck away. And I understand that. And no matter how much argument that you want to make about U.S. presence overseas and whether or not we're a force multiplier or we're a positive force, people are just tired of our shit. And al-Sudani is very tired of our shit. The Iraq people are probably very tired of our shit. Like, we invaded Iraq 20 years ago. Like, kids, there are people there are fully grown adults who don't know a time that there weren't American forces inside of their country. And, as an American, we have bases so many places. And if you ever told me it's like, the Japanese want to open a base here in America, it's going to be a Japanese base run by the Japanese and it's going to be Japanese land. It's like, that doesn't sound correct. Because we are the big swinging dicks of World War II, and, we're still swinging that dick. Even though the dick is getting much less impressive and fearful from everybody else, people aren't afraid of our dick anymore, is what I'm saying. So the press secretary says that they're actively involved in planning and carrying that al-Jawari, who is the one who they killed, Mushtaq Jawad Kazim al-Jawari, known as Abu Taqwa, a leader of the Harakat al-Nujaba militia. I hope most of that sounded correctly. I did try to, when I was over there, I try to do well at pronouncing and getting around a lot of the consonants that they use over there. Just, how it sounds coming out of American mouths. It's just, I know it doesn't sound right, but they're just tired of our shit. And whether or not, they're saying the press secretary Pat Ryder said that al-Zawahiri was actively involved in planning and carrying out attacks against American personnel, referring to a series of attacks on American troops in the last 3 months. Ryder referred to the operation as a self-defense strike. Again, you're in their country. We are in their country. I will put myself in there because, fuck it, I was there once upon a time too. I can't, wash my hands of it. But it's not self-defense. Like, you can't have your foot on somebody's neck, and when they stab you in the calf, you'd be like, oh, I need to defend myself against this. You're the ones who are in charge here, man. You can't call this self-defense. So, Iraq has criticized the strike even before al-Sudani's comments. An Iraqi military spokesperson declared the Baghdad strike as, quote, unprovoked attack on an Iraqi security body. So that is how we tend to do. We just decide that somebody is involved in something, and then we shoot a missile full of swords at them. I will say the missile full of swords, while horrifying, is also pretty sweet because it is a missile full of swords. But, we didn't kill anybody else. We killed him. I don't know. It's not great. It never is. It's all just constant bloodshed. And, when you kill somebody, you kill a terrorist that has 3 sons, you just made 3 more terrorists, or, nephews or anything like that. And really, what do these people want other than for you to stop being in their shit? So go home. Please, let's get it the fuck out of Iraq. I'm not a pull back and do nothing anywhere else in the world kind of person. I definitely feel like American presence can be a useful thing if exercised correctly. We're looking at you, Yugoslavia. Well, actually, we're not looking at you, Yugoslavia. But we have positive presence sometimes. It's just not in the last 30 years, 25, 30 years. So get the fuck out of Iraq, man. Maybe they'll stop shooting at you. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Let's be honest. Iraq didn't attack us on 9/11, so I don't know what the fuck we were even doing there in the first place. I don't think anybody's really been able to answer that one. All right, what else we got in the news? Oh, boy. Pentagon offers new details on Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's hospitalization. So this has been very funny. And this is one of those stories that I was talking to my wife about it. And I said, I know you don't keep up with military drama. And she's like, oh, boy, do I not. And I said, but did you hear this defense secretary thing? And she said, oh, yeah, that's on NPR. That's not military drama. That is United States drama. So the SecDef, our Secretary of Defense, went in for a routine procedure before, like, around Christmas or so. And then something happened and he had to go back into the hospital. And he's been in the hospital at this point. It's the 8th. I think he's been in the hospital for a week now. Nobody knew he was in the hospital for like 4 days. Even they even had like a secondary, the Deputy Secretary of Defense, who just like took over hey, you got to take over some duties for the SecDef. Didn't tell her that, like, hey, by the way, he is not here because he's in the hospital, I don't know, bleeding out or something. I don't know what the fuck happened to him. But yeah, just a whole, like, nobody said anything. And it's so fucking flabbergasting, honestly. Like, to tell nobody. Like, that's our Secretary of Defense. It's like one of the top guys. It's like you've got your, like, Secretary of the Army and the Marines and the Air Force and all that shit. And then you've got the guy in charge of all those who talks to the president on a regular basis. The president didn't even know. Like, I have at times in the military, especially on that Afghanistan deployment, where nobody really considered me or cared about me or too much. There have definitely been some days where it's just like, I can just disappear for 2 or 3 days and I don't think anybody's really going to give a shit. And for the most part, they don't. But I was a specialist public affairs officer. I was not the Secretary of Defense. I was a jagoff from St. Louis who didn't want to be there after about 5 months anyway. So, it's a little bit different for me versus the Secretary of Defense. So it is alarming and surprising and confusing, but also a little funny, I guess. Like, there's all these breathless stories about, like, oh, the security of America was at stake and this. It wasn't. We're fine. Like, Austin could have died, like, and we'd be fine. We have a second in command. We have other people who are there. It's just weird. It's just weird that he disappeared for 3 days, and it's weird he didn't tell anybody. It's also weird that nobody noticed. Like, that's the thing that, like, everybody's yelling at him, like, oh, why didn't you tell anybody? Why did you not notice that he was not showing up for the meetings? I get it. It's after, after the holiday season. It's that first week back. Everybody's just kind of easing back into things. But, like, I don't think the SecDef takes days off, especially not random ones that he doesn't tell anybody. So I put this 50% on Austin, but I also put it 50% on literally everybody else who should have been like, where the fuck is Austin at? I haven't talked to him in like 24 hours and he's not answering his texts. Where is this guy? Does anybody know? And somebody should know. Somebody should be like, oh, he's, hanging out over here. He's off in a... I think it feels like one of those things where like you just get like, where one specialist disappears and 3 specialists like try to cover for him by like constantly telling the sergeant like, oh, I just saw Specialist Horton. He's over in the motor pool. And then sergeant goes over there like, oh, you just missed him. Sergeant Specialist Horton just went over to the dining facility for lunch, and he'll be back. And oh, sergeant, you just missed him. He was just. Meanwhile, I am day drinking in my barracks playing Call of Duty. So I didn't do that particular, but I have heard of that happening before, and we're not in the habit of incriminating ourselves here on this podcast. So this is very surprising, but also very funny. But I do have to say there was even something funnier that came out, which was this tweet from Marine Corps about the Commandant of the Marines, who underwent successful open heart surgery today on the 8th, resting comfortably and everything like that. I know that they're not subtweeting. I know that this is literally exactly what they should have been doing, but it kind of feels like a subtweet to just be like, oh, yeah, hey, by the way, here's our guy. He also underwent some surgery, and he's okay. Here's where he is. We're going to let you know if anything happens, okay? Don't worry about it. And now, look, I don't really give a shit what Austin is doing on any given day or the Commandant, but, like, I feel like you should show up for your job. Like, I got to show up on time. I got to, do the podcast. I got to, fix computers and shit like that. So I don't understand why he gets to knock off like that. So I've heard that I was reading something that Biden won't accept his resignation, which, like, sure, whatever. It's not that big of a deal. It's very funny, though. It's very funny that this happened. So let's go ahead and move over to the Hey Dad. All right, it's that time for Ask a Dad, where I solicit you all for questions that you might have for a dad, whether you have a dad, don't have a dad that might not know, or maybe you don't talk to him. Whatever it is, I try to make myself as available as I can to be the dad as necessary. I've been a dad for 8 years, and I have I'm also 40. I think most of dad knowledge comes from being 40, being in a stable marriage for the last... How long have we been together? We've been together for 13 years, we're in our 10th year, so, and still, happy and all that. So, a lot of information and kind of comes with all of that. Most of it is how to keep, your other half happy. And I know she does the same for me. This is, a happy wife, happy life. But, I know that she takes care of my dumb ass too. So, a couple of questions that people had. Our first one is, what's a tool that a lot of people have but don't actually need? So generally I get questions about what's a tool that people should have. And that's a hard question because I don't know what you do. I don't know what you might need tools to do. A screwdriver is always, a Phillips head and a flathead screwdriver are always right up there at the top. And then you can kind of flesh things out from there. But like a tool that you don't actually need is a hard one because I have a huge industrial shelf in my basement that's full of different tools I have tool bags, and I have drills, and I have a sawzall, and I have a chainsaw, and I have all kinds of things that I've collected over, I've been living outside of my parents' house for 20 plus years. I lived in a 140-year-old Victorian home before I bought my current house. So that one needed a lot of work. And then I bought my current house, which needed a lot of work because it was a rental property. And For those of you who live in rental properties, landlords don't necessarily take great care of everything, and they don't really put the nicest things inside of it. So that's been, I have had to, unfortunately call people to say, hey, because I can't put a new furnace in. I have to call somebody to put the furnace in. I have to call somebody to put an air conditioning compressor in. I can't do those things. But I do know where where it begins for me, in what I can do and where it eventually ends. And usually it ends, I used to think it was electricity, but I'm fine with all my 110 stuff. But as soon as I had to do something with 220, I didn't want to touch that. So, but something that you don't necessarily need that a lot of people have, I would say, multiple, sockets, like socket wrench. A socket wrench is a good thing to have, but a socket wrench, most of what you're doing with a socket wrench, in my knowledge, and in what I have experienced, when I did car work, I used a socket wrench a lot. The only time I use a socket wrench now, the last time I used a socket wrench was swapping the battery out in one of my cars. So I don't, and also replacing a light bulb. So I don't do a whole lot with sockets themselves. Most of my nuts and bolts can be taken care of with either an adjustable wrench, which I highly recommend having an adjustable wrench. Channel locks if necessary. Channel locks, if you don't know, are kind of it's a plier that, does like that. It looks like an L, and you can make it open up really wide and everything. Channel locks are great to have. Get a cheap pair of those. You can go to Harbor Freight and get all of this shit. If you're not a professional, man, go buy the cheap shit from Harbor Freight so you can do whatever you need. So, so sockets really, anything standard size probably don't need, go metric. Not a lot of things, require the standard sizing of either wrenches or sockets and things like that. Get the metric ones. They're close enough. A 13 millimeter is about a 1/2 inch. So they're close enough that one will work with the other. So unless you actually, like somebody says, no, specifically you need some American ass sockets to do this work because, I don't know. I don't even think like car companies do that. I wouldn't even know if Ford does that. Maybe they do. I don't know. I haven't worked on cars in 20 years. But that's what I would say that the socket wrench set in general is kind of unnecessary, that I feel like a lot of people get, and then they kind of sit and don't get used, and maybe one or two things gets used, but you could have saved a little bit of money and gotten, a decent wrench set or an adjustable wrench. Now, I will say it's not bad to have them. I just see socket wrenches go unused the most when it comes to people's collections. The sockets are the most unused thing that I have, and I have so many fucking sockets. I cannot tell you how many sockets I have because they're all in this massive toolbox. I bought it all. When I got back from Afghanistan and I had more money than I knew what to do with, and I was 21, I was like, oh, I'm going to buy this $300 socket set that I start my tools, my tool collection and everything that I need, because I felt I'm 21, I'm a man, I need tools. Tools are how you get things done, and I have schlepped those tools around everywhere that I have gone. And eventually they did become useful, but everything inside of that toolbox that I have, it's a big red one too. And it's got the little pull-out drawers and everything. I don't use anything inside of that. I have a kind of a canvas go bag one that I have my drills, my drill bits, my pliers, various pliers, a level, and a few other things, but no sock. I have an adjustable wrench and channel locks and needle nose pliers. That's all I need through there. So sockets, I don't think most people don't need them. If you're doing home DIY stuff, you don't need a socket set for the most part. All right. So somebody else asked, on kind of piggybacking on that, how do I get started on that DIY project? I have something that I need to do, that I need to finish, and I don't necessarily know where to start. And it becomes hard to, start. It becomes hard to begin the process of, here's what I need to do to get, this done. In the case of the person who was asking, they were talking about replacing a light up in their ceiling, which is I'm going to tell you, replacing a light is one of the easiest things that you can do. But I understand that, like, if you don't know where to start, one, it's electricity, and people are afraid of electricity. But two, if you don't know where to start, it's hard to start. And this isn't just with, electricity. This is with drywalling. This is with plumbing. This is with anything else that you might end up doing. So I'll tell you a couple of the things that I did. I had no idea how to do certain things, and so how do I get to where I'm going? So in my house, we have what's called a Pittsburgh toilet, which is a free-floating toilet in the basement. It's not surrounded by walls or anything. It's just an open toilet. It works. I use it on occasion, but like there's no privacy there. Like I use it when, my wife or kid is in the bathroom, in the bath or the shower, and I need to use the bathroom. I have no problem going downstairs and using the gross basement one. It's not gross. I clean it, but it's in the basement. It's an unfinished basement. So we needed to replace the wax ring on that. So what the wax ring is that when you take the toilet up off of the floor, if you don't know this, there's a big hole in the floor. The big hole is where all your poops go when you flush the toilet. The water comes in, it goes up to the U-bend, it does like that, and it goes down. And that water that's in there, in that U-bend, is what keeps it from smelling. It's what keeps all the sewer gas from coming back up into your house and stinking the place up. So there's a wax ring that's around the hole, and that's a sealing ring. It's not really made out of wax, I don't think. Part of it might be. I don't know. It's been a minute since I've had to replace this, but so I knew that this needed to be done. Now, the wax ring had been replaced on my upstairs toilet by plumbing professionals. We had done that because it was the first year that we were living here, and we had a home warranty. So we had, hey, $100, no matter what, somebody will come out and replace whatever. So I paid the $100. I saw two guys came out, and they fucking knocked this thing out in like 15 minutes. And I kind of watched like, oh, that's seems like something I can do. Like plumbing is another thing. Like you worry about like, I don't want to fuck this up because it's water and I don't want water to go everywhere. But like, I'm smart. I can figure out plumbing. It's sealing. It's very simple. So when I had to do the Pittsburgh one, I went down to my Lowe's. I picked up a wax ring for $20. There's all kinds of like, somebody's like, oh, you need this like thing to lift the toilet up properly so that you can set it down. You don't need all that shit. Turn the water off to the toilet and undid everything. Put the wax ring in. Put the thing down. Now, I didn't necessarily learn all this from watching these dudes in my house because it's a small bathroom. There was two guys. I was kind of watching over their shoulder, and then we were done really, really quickly. So I was like, oh, it seems like something I could probably do. So YouTube is where I have learned almost all of the DIY stuff. My pod shack here. I have a window that I roughed in myself with a Sawzall and a measuring tape. It's not a big window, and I wish I had put something bigger in. I wish I hadn't been cheap about it, but if I needed to, I could, I could get my fucking Sawzall out and do more. I could cut a bigger hole in and put in a bigger window. I know how to do that. My electrical stuff, I learned how to install, you install a light, that's one thing, but trying to install a ceiling fan, that is a whole nother that's a whole other, like, it's the same concept, but it's heavier, which means it's more of a bitch to do on a ladder by yourself. So, but I learned how to do all of that stuff with YouTube. And now I'm going to tell you, a lot of this stuff comes with instructions. Like, they kind of figure, like, look, you're probably smart enough to know the red goes to the red, the white goes to the white, the green goes to the green, screw, and you're done. You hit the, go back down, turn the electricity off before you do any of this stuff. But as long as you turn the electricity off, you're going to be fine to whatever, wherever you're at. So yeah, YouTube is where I learned so much stuff. It's where I learned a lot of my drywalling. It's where I had to drywall a whole wall in my kitchen when we had to do our kitchen nightmare that we had to take care of. But yeah, I threw up sheets of drywall, and you can't even fucking tell that it's something that some dipshit like me did. It's something that, like, very obvious, that looks semi-professional. It looks like somebody who knew what they were doing did it, because I watched some YouTube videos. I will tell you that for a lot of DIY stuff and a lot of your at-home things that you got to do around the house, you can probably do them. Now, I have talked to many a contractor who has come by and been like, yeah, I've heard those stories. The husband that says like, oh, I can do this. I'm smart. I can watch something and figure it out. So I'm going to tell you, know your limitations and also have a contractor on speed dial just in case. Like when I had to do my kitchen, there's a lot of things in my kitchen that I was able to do by myself. And there are a few things that I needed a guy to come out and do for me. One of them was run a 220 line for my cooktop. One of them was plumbing. I can do certain plumbing, but I was not comfortable like cutting pipes and soldering new stuff in. I don't know how to do that stuff. So hired a guy, brought him in, and I worked with him to, so I could watch everything, watch how he does things, not necessarily so I can, I don't need you again in the future, but just so I have an understanding of how these things work. So, if you don't know where to start with YouTube. There's always a kindly old man or some dude with a southern accent and a t-shirt and a pair of ripped jeans who will like bring out his iPhone and show you everything and then show you everything that he's doing. And maybe it's not the best production value, but you're going to be able to watch exactly what's happening. I'd say in my old house, we had a garage that had a garage door opener that was fucking ancient. It was ancient garage door opener. And I had to do some repairs on it. And God bless this one old man who I Googled my specific model, and there was a guy who had a couple of videos like, yeah, I've got that. Here's, some things on how to do it. So YouTube is full of all kinds of great stuff. If you get around all the weird Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson stuff and all the fucked up misogynist Nazis and whatnot, there's a lot of really cool stuff on YouTube, and you can learn a lot of really great stuff. I am always learning stuff on YouTube. I had the idea of making my own resin dice, because why not, So I watched a bunch of videos on how to do that, decided the buy-in to it was a little bit higher than what I wanted to do for right now, but I know how to do it. I understand the concepts of it now, and I know that if I do want to do it, I know where to start. So it at least gives me that kind of confidence of I know where to begin, and the beginning is always the hardest thing, right? It's the hardest thing to find. I always say the hardest part of working out is getting up and putting the workout clothes on, because once the workout clothes are on and you're in the car going to the gym, you're there. The workout's not hard. Maybe it is, depending on how you work out, but the mental block of yes, I will get up and I will go and I will do the thing, and then I will come home and I guess we'll be fine, be fine after that. But that beginning part is very difficult. So find that. Okay, so the last one, a bit of a more serious one. What's the proper way to tell your parents bad news about your personal life? I have not had to tell my parents bad news in a while. Luckily, I live a fairly charmed life, but I know that for myself as a parent, if there was something, it's hard to tell your parents something that makes you feel like you're a failure. Maybe you're not a failure, but it's hard to fail at something in this progression of life that we have. And no matter what that failure is, whether it's financial, whether it's addiction, whether it's relationship wise, anything like that, it's hard to admit to it. You can admit to it to yourself because you're the one that's in the shit, but to admit it to your parents is going to be the harder thing. And I can't tell you based on your parents, because I know that for some people, this isn't bad news necessarily, but I know that some people have, plenty of people have problems coming out to their parents. But when we're talking about actual bad news, I feel like you're going to do a lot better by just being out there and being honest about it and not hiding behind it. It's hard to do that. It is incredibly hard to do that. It's hard to take responsibility out loud for your fuck up. And I know it because I fucked up plenty. And I know that I fucked up plenty of times, and it's always easiest and it's always best to walk in and say, I fucked this up. Here's my plan to fix it. Or I fucked this up. Can somebody help me fix this? You're going to get a lot more. People are going to forgive you more if you are able to say, I fucked this up. I need help. And maybe for later on, you can say, okay, I fucked this up. Now that it's fixed, how do I not fuck it up again in the future? Something along those lines. So be direct, be honest, be forthcoming, and have, try to have like, I fucked up and here's what I'd like to do, or I fucked up and I would like your advice on what to do here. I think is going to be your best idea. So, if you've got a question that you need a dad to answer, I am here, always here. You can get us in the Discord. If you're a member of the Lions Led by Donkeys or the Hell of a Way to Die Patreon, you have access to our Discord. You can also always DM me on Twitter at ArmyStrang. And if I don't answer it there, I'll try to answer it here. I try to do this every week. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But I like to be available to help you out, because I know that I know that I'm not necessarily followed by a bunch of like starry-eyed 20-year-olds who are just like, I don't know how to do these things. But like sometimes when you get to your 30s, there's blank spots. Like I know that. The only reason I know how to do all the DIY stuff I know now is because I had to learn how to do it. Like if I didn't learn how to do it, it would have cost me a fortune to get to have just somebody else to do it. Like if I had to call somebody in every time I had to replace a light socket or an electrical outlet, I would be way more in the red than I am now. Thankfully, I know how to do that. An outlet is like $1.50 at Lowe's. I have a screwdriver. I can swap it in and swap it out very simply. So, but I know these things because there was a need for me to know them. And so not everybody has that experience, and everybody, has their own things that they know. Everybody knows something that I don't know. But yeah, if you have those questions, not necessarily about DIY, but I have been around. I have been on this earth for 40 years, and I have fucked up a lot, both, personally, financially, professionally, but I'm still here and still go forward. And, just because you fuck up doesn't mean you can't be a success later on. Be a success win. Be the success win that you know that you are in your heart. All right, thank you everybody so much for watching and listening. Again, we're still in January. We're still in this brand new year, this glorious election year, which I'm sure is not going to rot anybody's brain. But I am recording this a little bit later than all my other stuff. Nate and I got our episode down, so really looking forward to having that out and getting back into the swing of things with him. So again, if you want to support the show, patreon.com/hell of a way to die. That's what keeps us in the black. That's what makes it possible to do everything that we do here. And hopefully we give you a little extra content back. But of course, if you don't want to, if you don't, or you can't financially support us, we always appreciate word of mouth. We appreciate it if you go out and tell all your friends, oh, listen to this great podcast that I love. That's what we're looking for. So, thank you for your support. Thank you for being here, and we'll talk to you next week.